Hi, I'm Rantid. For those of you who don't know me, uh, I work at all the high schools. This is actually my 50th year of starting school with Regina Catholic. I taught for 30 years, retired in 2001. They asked me to come back and work with kids that were struggling with drug and alcohol stuff, and then that's transferred into mental health stuff too. So I'm still around. Anyway, having fun. And last year we were talking about what we could do to help the kids and help the teachers when school started. So we put together a mindfulness initiative to help kids re-regulate to being back in school and to really help teachers re-regulate themselves too, because uh, it's a stressful job in lots of ways. And the more we can do to help ourselves manage stress and also teach the kids how to manage stress and anxiety, those kinds of things, the better opportunity we have to teach them and the better job they can do of learning. So what we've proposed and essentially agreed on is to introduce a couple of minutes of mindfulness, and I'll explain what that is shortly, videos, at the start of each class for the first couple of months of school. So for the first 1 or 2 minutes of each class, and we've put together a whole selection of basically point and click materials that you can use with your classes. I think there's about 50 different options. And you can rotate through them, or your kids might say, hey, we really like that one. Can we do that again? And I know the teachers who have done this before have found really excellent response from the kids and really excellent change in attention and focus. So bear with me for a second. I'm going to share a screen here, which always challenges me for some reason. Look at that, it's working. Okay, so I know you can all read, or at least I hope you can read. So taking control of our minds, Mind the Mind, School Mindfulness Program. Lots of us feel like this a lot. And kids really feel like this way more than we realize. And sometimes they don't really even know what's going on with them or know how they're feeling, and certainly don't have a clue really how to change anything. So, oh, sorry, get carried away. So just do this, please. So that's an example of two things. One of them is the example of the kind of thing we put together for kids to use and you to use with your kids in class. And that took a minute. And taking a minute at the start of each class to help people settle and focus is actually much more productive than just about anything else you can do. Uh, the other thing that happened, if you were doing that, is you activated what's called your parasympathetic nervous system, which tells you that things are okay. The root of anxiety, the root of a lot of ADD, ADHD problems is not feeling safe. So worrying about other stuff, thinking about the future, uh, uh, not focused on what's going on in the moment, which is something that you can't control. So you immediately don't feel particularly safe. And uh, doing a little bit of breath work like that helps your brain settle down and pulls yourself into the present. Let's do it again. So this is a little look on, a little bigger look on what I was talking about.
You know what anxiety feels like. We all do. Everyone experiences anxiety in some way or another. It's something that connects all of us together. Why we feel anxiety and what it really is, that may surprise you. Without anxiety, we'd all be in serious trouble. As soon as your brain senses you're in danger, a little piece of it, called the amygdala, kicks in. It gets your body ready to react. That could mean fight, run away, or shut down. It's called the fight, flight, or freeze response. This reaction goes back millions of years to our distant animal ancestors. Animals whose amygdalae were more sensitive to danger were more likely to stay alive and off the menu. Over millions of generations, this developed into the system we all know as anxiety. So you see, anxiety itself is not all bad. But when there's no immediate life or death threat, and your amygdala keeps telling your body that you're in danger, that's when anxiety becomes a problem. Your amygdala doesn't know the difference between getting eaten and public speaking or failing a test. Human society has only existed for a relatively short time. It's messy and complicated and confusing, and our amygdalae just haven't had time to catch up. So sometimes, when we're in uncomfortable situations, our brains misread the risk and overreact. Our hearts beat faster and we breathe heavily, pulling more oxygen into our bodies. The muscles in our arms and legs tense up and fill with blood. Our skin perspires to cool us down. This would all be great if we needed to fight or run, but instead, we just feel tense and sweaty. Sometimes our minds go blank and we feel like we can't move or talk. That would be great if we needed to hide. Instead, we just feel stuck. When things trigger our anxiety, sometimes we try to avoid them, like our ancestors avoiding a predator. But that can cause problems when those triggers are important parts of life, like going to school or meeting new people, things that won't just give up and go away. So how does knowing all this help? Well, it starts with remembering what's really going on. There's nothing physically wrong with you. It's just your amygdala trying to tell you it thinks you're in danger, even if it gets confused about how much danger you're really in. Understanding why we feel anxiety is an important step in learning to manage it.
So,
You know what anxiety.
so if we look at exactly what's going on, whenever we feel anxious, and that can be coming back to school, having a new class, being in a new class, not sure who's sitting beside you. Another thing that I think we really need to pay attention to is what kids are doing with their phones, because they are incredibly anxiety producing. So if you've got one of those shoe holder things in your room, get your kids to put their phones in there when they come into class, you significantly reduce something that's going to distract them. But that's a whole other discussion. But when we feel anxiety, what's happened is our brain has released cortisol, and that causes all those reactions that they talked about in that little video. But the result is, and this is really important to understand, the result of being in an anxious state changes your brain. It reduces the neocortex capacity to process, and it pulls all of the focus into the brain on protecting ourselves from whatever that stress is. So, I mean, we're not really on the food chain, but if we're worried about stuff, we're thinking about things that aren't happening, uh, uh, that activates that fight, flight, or freeze stress response system. And the changes that occur in the brain in the acute phase when that's happening are really interesting to understand uh, when we're trying to teach people. So it reduces your capacity to pay attention to other things. So you're just focusing on the stress. It reduces your big picture perception. So manipulating a concept in a class, if you're anxious, is very, very difficult. Reduces short-term memory, which we like kids to have if we're trying to teach them stuff. It reduces capacity to learn and even reduces your vocabulary. And, if you can imagine, they talked about being on the food chain. That stress response system has been around forever, basically. Um, and if we're being chased by a bear, you don't need any of these things. You just need to be able to run fast. But when we feel anxious in a classroom, it's like we brought a bear with us. And that makes it extremely difficult to learn. Chronic stress, which is stress that's happening all the time, uh, creates some secondary problems. So you don't sleep properly, you don't digest food properly, and you're sort of constantly under emotional distress, which is just like repeating this over and over and over again. And so anything that we can do as teachers to help kids uh, uh, relax, help them self-regulate, and most importantly, help them learn that they can control this themselves, uh, is is a huge advantage to them long term and to their immediate education goals. So here's a little thing on mindfulness, which is really what we're talking about.
There is a story, usually attributed to the Native American tradition, which illuminates different ways of paying attention. An elder, talking to a child, says, "I have two wolves fighting in my heart. One wolf is fearful, vengeful, envious, resentful, and deceitful. The other wolf is compassionate, loving, generous, truthful, and peaceful." The child asks, "Which wolf will win the fight?" The elder responds, "The one I feed." That doesn't mean we try to deny or hurt or kill the angry wolf. If we did that, we'd end up in a long battle, all the while somehow making that wolf more powerful through our hostility and fear. Hating that wolf sucks the strength right out of us. Instead, we calmly pay attention to the angry wolf and let go of believing they have the answers. If we can do that, they end up lying down next to us, no longer an enemy. We help strengthen the kind and loving wolf, giving it nourishment and support so that we can follow it. That peaceful wolf can become our steady companion and show us the way through all kinds of different life experiences. Restful or chaotic, enjoyable or disappointing experiences may come and go, but we can have a guide with us through it all. This is what mindfulness can help you do. Mindfulness allows us to see our thoughts and feelings as they are beginning. It's very powerful to know what we're feeling as we're feeling it, know what we're thinking as we're thinking it. With mindfulness, we can choose what will strengthen and bring into action, and we can choose what we will gently let go of. We don't have to be at the mercy of old habits or old ways of thinking or old ways of being. We are empowered. It just takes practice.
And that practice thing is exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about at the start of each class. That's 5 times a day, kids are going to get some mindfulness practice. That's 25 times a week. That's 100 times a month. 2 months, that's 200 sort of minimum practice sessions. And as they realize that this is going to help them, that it is helping them, they're going to start doing it on their own. Because if something works for us, we tend to adopt it. So here's just some research on this, just so you know, I didn't just like make all this up just to give you something else to do. Effects of mindfulness-based stress reduction on employees, which are teachers, mental health, a systematic review. Based on our analysis, the strongest outcomes were reduced levels of emotional exhaustion. Have any of you been emotionally exhausted? Felt stress, psychological distress, depression, anxiety, occupational stress. Improvements were found in terms of mindfulness, personal accomplishment, self-compassion, quality of sleep, and relaxation. I put the research link down there if you want to actually look that up. But mindfulness has been a subject that has been being researched more and more and more, and the results are absolutely amazing. And if we look at what it does for kids, it's very similar relative to the controls, and these are legitimate studies. There were lower stress, greater sense of well-being, degree to which students in the intervention group practiced the mindfulness skills was associated with better well-being. So by giving them lots of opportunities in school to start to learn this stuff, we are giving them a huge personal mental health advantage, but we're also creating an environment within our rooms that that's going to feel safer for them, that's going to feel more comfortable, and is going to give them a better capacity to learn stuff. So here's one more, and please do this along with this, and pay attention to what changes for you. So let's stop share here. There. So please give this a good go. If you're thinking, oh my God, this is just one more thing I need to do, what it will do for you is help settle you. And like I said, there's lots of different options. We've generated a list that you can just click on, bring up a video, and get your kids to do it in class. And I think more importantly, both for example and for yourselves, do it with them. So thanks for listening, and I'll be around the schools every week. If you have questions or would like me to come in and work with your class, I would be more than happy to do that. So I will stop this and see you in person soon.